I thought I knew everything about the people closest to me. But nothing could prepare me for the day I discovered my own sister was having an affair with my fiancé. What I uncovered wasn't just betrayal. It was a shocking twist that left me questioning everything. And what happened after? You won't believe it. They say family is everything, that no bond is stronger than the one you share with your siblings. And they also say love conquers all, that it's supposed to be the ultimate source of trust and stability. But what happens when those two worlds collide in the most devastating way? What do you do when the very people you hold closest, the ones you'd never imagined betraying you, end up being the source of your deepest heartbreak? This story isn't just about betrayal or heartbreak. It's about resilience. It's about what it takes to confront the people who've hurt you the most and find the strength to move forward when your entire world feels like it's falling apart. When I first started noticing the signs, I told myself I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe I was overthinking it because the alternative was too painful to even consider. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the small lies or the awkward glances. It was the way I started questioning everything I thought I knew about the two people I trusted the most. This isn't just a story about what happened to me. It's a journey through the moments that tested me in ways I never imagined. It's about the betrayal I never saw coming, the confrontation that tore my world apart, and the life-altering decisions I had to make in the aftermath. I want to share this with you not because it's easy to relive, but because I know I'm not the only one who's been betrayed by people they loved. And if this story can remind even one person that they're stronger than the pain they've endured, then it's worth telling. So, let me take you through it, from the first red flags, to the moment I uncovered the truth, to what happened when I finally confronted them. This is the story of how betrayal broke me, and how I found the strength to rebuild. Trust me, it's not what you'd expect. It started with the kind of small, innocent things that most people would overlook, things that only start to make sense when you piece them together later. My younger sister, Chloe, had always been the life of the party. She had this effortless way of drawing people in, of turning heads wherever she went. I used to admire that about her. Jake, my fiancé, was no exception. But why would that matter? Jake and I were in love, planning our wedding, and Chloe was supposed to be my maid of honor. I trusted them both completely, or at least, I thought I did. In the beginning, Chloe was involved in everything. She helped me pick out flowers, dresses, and even taste test a menu for the reception. I was thrilled to have her by my side during one of the most exciting times of my life. She made me feel like I wasn't doing it alone. Jake, on the other hand, wasn't as enthusiastic about wedding planning, but I didn't mind. He was busy with work, and Chloe's enthusiasm more than made up for it. But then, little things started to shift. At first, it was easy to brush off. Jake began canceling plans more frequently, claiming he had deadlines to meet or unexpected meetings to attend. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He had always been reliable. Around the same time, Chloe started acting a little different too. She'd slip out of family gatherings with vague excuses like needing to run an errand or take a call. Again, it didn't seem like a big deal. She was a grown woman with her own life, after all. Then there were moments that felt just strange. Once, I walked into the living room and saw Jake laughing at something on his phone. When I asked him what was so funny, he smiled and said it was just a meme Chloe sent. It didn't bother me at the time. I even thought it was nice that my sister and fiancé were getting along. But now, looking back, I realized that moment was one of the first cracks in the perfect picture I thought I was living. The doubts really began to creep in the day I found Chloe's scarf in Jake's car. It was a unique scarf, bright red with a pattern that was unmistakably hers. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she left it there during one of the times we'd all gone out together. But when I asked Jake about it, his explanation was vague. She must have dropped it when we carpooled, he said, brushing it off like it was no big deal. Yet, something about the way he avoided eye contact stuck with me. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking. This was Chloe, my sister, and Jake, the man I was about to marry. What kind of person would suspect the two people they love most in the world of something so unthinkable? But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me every time something didn't quite add up. It wasn't just the scarf or the excuses. It was the way Jake started acting distant, even when we were alone. It was the way Chloe's jokes about stealing Jake suddenly didn't feel so harmless. And it was the way my gut twisted every time I saw the two of them together. Still, I hesitated. What proof did I have? Accusing them without evidence felt like a betrayal of its own. But ignoring my instincts didn't make the uneasiness go away. If anything, it only grew stronger. Every time I replayed those little moments in my mind, I started to notice more and more inconsistencies. Was I being paranoid? Or was my intuition trying to tell me something I didn't want to hear? At that point, I knew I couldn't keep ignoring the signs. I had to find out the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. The moment my world started unraveling was at a family barbecue. It was one of those warm, sunny afternoons where everyone's supposed to feel relaxed and happy. But for me, something felt off. Jake had been unusually quiet all day, almost like he wasn't really there. He kept checking his watch, looking distracted, and barely made an effort to join the conversations. Chloe, on the other hand, was glued to her phone, giggling at whatever she was texting. It might have been nothing, but then I caught something that made my stomach knot, a glance between them. It was fleeting, the kind of look that wouldn't mean much to anyone else. But to me, it felt loaded, like there was something unspoken passing between them. A chill ran down my spine, but I told myself I was imagining things. After all, who wants to believe the worst about the people they love? As the evening went on, that feeling of unease didn't go away. In fact, it grew stronger. At one point, Jake's phone buzzed on the table, and he snatched it up so quickly it was almost comical. He muttered something about work and stepped away to take the call. My eyes drifted to Chloe, who seemed suddenly very interested in her drink. By the time we got home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. So, when Jake left his phone on the counter and went to take a shower, I made a decision. I told myself it was for wedding planning. I needed to check the guest list or confirm a venue detail. But deep down, I knew my hand shook as I unlocked his phone, using the passcode I had memorized long ago. I almost hoped I wouldn't find anything. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But the moment I opened his messages, my heart stopped. There it was, text after text between Jake and Chloe. At first, they seemed harmless enough. They joked about silly things, talked about random topics, and shared memes. But as I scrolled further, the tone began to shift. Their messages grew flirty. Their inside jokes felt far too personal. And then there it was. I can't wait to see you tonight. My chest tightened, and my vision blurred as I kept scrolling. Weeks' worth of messages unfolded before me, each one more damning than the last. They talked about sneaking around, about how hard it was to keep their secret, and even about times they'd been together. Times when I thought Jake was working late or Chloe was running errands. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. My fiancé and my sister, the two people I trusted most in the world, had been sneaking behind my back. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the sheer audacity of it all. How could Chloe, the person I shared my deepest secrets with, do something so cruel? And Jake, the man I was supposed to marry, how could he lie to my face every single day? I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. That night, as Jake came out of the bathroom, I stood there holding his phone. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady when I asked him one simple question. Why? His face went pale, and he froze like a deer in headlights. What are you talking about? He stammered, his voice cracking. I held up his phone, showing him the text, and his expression shifted from shock to something almost like fear. It's not what it looks like, he said, his voice desperate. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I shot back, my anger finally breaking through. You've been sneaking around with my sister. How long has this been going on? Jake, were you ever going to tell me, or were you planning to marry me while keeping this little affair going on the side? He started to say something, another excuse, another lie, but I cut him off. Don't. Just don't. I want the truth, Jake. All of it, right now. But the truth wasn't what he gave me. Instead, He doubled down, claiming it was just harmless fun and that I was blowing things out of proportion. Harmless fun? Was that what he called betraying the woman he was supposed to marry? I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the phone onto the couch and stormed out of the room, leaving him scrambling to come up with another excuse. But it wasn't over. No, I still had one more confrontation ahead of me, and it was going to be even harder than this one. The next day, I decided to face Chloe. If I thought confronting Jake was painful, I was in for an even bigger heartbreak. After all, Jake was someone I had chosen to let into my life. But Chloe, she was my sister. How do you even begin to deal with that kind of betrayal? I couldn't let things end with just confronting Jake. There was another conversation I needed to have, one that would hurt even more. The next day, I called Chloe and asked her to meet me. She sounded cheerful, even excited, over the phone, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. We met at a quiet coffee shop, the same one where we had spent countless afternoons chatting about life, love, and, ironically, wedding plans. As she walked in, smiling and carefree, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness welling up inside me. How could she act so normal, knowing what she had done? I didn't waste any time. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her face instantly shifted, cycling through emotions so quickly it was almost dizzying. Confusion, realization, guilt, and finally, tears. She stared at the screen as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Is this real?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh, it's real," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "And so is the pain you've caused me." She started to cry, muttering apologies through her tears. "I never meant for this to happen," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened." That phrase, "it just happened," made my blood boil. "Chloe," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this didn't just happen. You made a choice. Every text, every meeting, every lie, you made a choice every single time." She reached out to grab my hand, but I pulled away. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You didn't just betray me, you betrayed our family. How am I supposed to look mom and dad in the eye and pretend everything's okay? How am I supposed to trust anyone ever again?" She sobbed harder, but I wasn't ready to comfort her. "Not yet. I thought you were my sister, Chloe. My best friend. How could you do this to me?" The hardest part wasn't hearing her apologies. It was realizing they didn't change anything. No amount of tears or regret could undo the damage she and Jake had caused. By the end of that conversation, I knew what I had to do. I called off the wedding that same day. I couldn't bear the thought of walking down the aisle, pretending everything was fine, when the man waiting for me at the altar had destroyed my trust. Jake tried to reach out, begging for another chance, but I blocked his number and made it clear we were done for good. As for Chloe, I told her I needed space, time to figure out if I could ever forgive her. For now, I couldn't imagine going back to the way things were. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw. My sister had broken my heart in a way I didn't think was possible, and I didn't know if we could ever rebuild what we'd lost. In the months that followed, I focused on healing. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the weight of the betrayal felt unbearable. But slowly, I came to realize something important. What they did didn't define me. If anything, it made me stronger. I refused to let their actions control my life. Instead of dwelling in bitterness, I poured my energy into things that truly mattered: my career, my friends, and most importantly, myself. I learned how to prioritize my own happiness, something I had neglected for so long. I surrounded myself with people who valued me, people who saw me for who I was and not just as someone to take advantage of. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened, but about choosing to move forward with my life. The most surprising twist, though, was what happened to Chloe and Jake. Despite everything they had put me through, their relationship didn't survive. Whatever they thought they had quickly fell apart once the reality of their actions caught up to them. In a way, I found a small sense of peace in that. While I would never wish pain or heartache on anyone, it felt like some form of poetic justice. They had torn apart my world, But in the end, they couldn't hold on to what they'd built on lies and deceit. As for me, I'm better, stronger, and more self-aware than I ever was before. And the best part, I'm finally in control of my own story. If you found this story impactful and want to hear more real-life experiences and lessons, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay tuned for more content that inspires, empowers, and helps you navigate life's challenges.